Welcome back to another episode of the Geek Centurions. It's me, your boy Eli.
And it's me, Joe.
We're going to talk about, this is the thing that everyone's been talking about and most recently is that the fact that WandaVision just keeps on getting crazier and crazier, and the fact that we just can't stop wrapping our heads around it.
WandaVision has it's pretty interesting stuff going on in WandaVision right now. It's a lot of people going a little crazy about it. So
A little.
Well, I mean, it's a lot of crazy because they're doing some pretty wait, what kind of things right now,
especially these two episodes we're gonna talk about, and the last episode where we saw essentially a dead Vision.
Yeah. Last week, the last time we talked about this, episode 4 had dead Vision, and that was a very crazy visual, seeing his dead body essentially being made to animate like a puppet.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Ooh, that's not good. So you want to talk about episode 5?
Yeah, let's jump into episode 5 because we're gonna do 5 and then we're gonna talk about 6.
Yeah, and then we're gonna go full spoilers on this one because it's kind of hard not to talk about the full spoilers.
Yeah, because there's literally just so much stuff happens in these 2 episodes, especially this recent episode. And all I can say is, how are we gonna wrap all this up in 3 episodes?
So, Joey, start us off. Where we go?
All right, so episode 5 is essentially we cut because we cut back to, we obviously have another sort of time jump or whatever, and it's the 80s now, and obviously Wanda and Vision's kids, Tommy and Billy, they're little babies. They're having fun and stuff, and as it turns out, what's her name? Agnes comes by to help babysit for a little bit, and
there's a glitch in the Matrix.
Yep, there's definitely a bit of a glitch because she's sort of kind of has a moment where she's like, "You want me to do that again from the top?" Kind of like actors, when an actor sort of messes up the lines, like, "Wait, can we run that back?" or whatever. Which obviously Wanda tries to play it off as, "Oh, that's just Agnes being Agnes," and Vision's like, No, that's not right. What's happening right now?
Yeah, we're getting Vision's basically realizing he's in the Truman Show.
Yeah. This episode's basically sort of Vision starting to realize things here are not right. There's something going on, and obviously the audience and Sword, who's outside, who recovered Monica Rambeau, know that Wanda definitely has control over this weird little alternate dimension thing she set up around Westview. And what's even stranger happens is that Bobby, Billy, and Tommy, they just grow up to be 5-year-olds.
Yeah, out of nowhere.
Yeah, literally, we see Wanda and Vision talking, and next thing you know, they're like, "Wait, why have they stopped crying?" And they turn around, and they're 5-year-olds. And Agnes is like, "Man, kids just get out of hand so fast."
And then we get to the Family Ties opening with a little bit of Family House in there.
Yeah, Full House. Yeah, it's definitely it's kind of crazy because we kind of expected, obviously, Wanda and Vision's kids to have powers because they do in the comics.
Wicked and Speed, respectively.
So it's very interesting that they sort of just they're more out there with their powers, when sort of, I guess, the whole premise is that, oh, Wanda and Vision are supposed to be hiding their powers and stuff, but not the case with these kids, especially if they're willing to rapidly age just because they want to.
Because they just jumped another 5 years, and in front of Agnes too, which is really freaking out Vision.
Yeah, and he's like, I thought we were supposed to be sort of
hush hush
about our power things, because this is a no.
Especially because she did some powers in front of her too.
Yeah, because in the sort of the WandaVision episode, Billy and it's Billy, right?
Billy, yeah.
Billy and Tommy, because I keep thinking it's Bobby and Tommy. I don't know why. I think they're just like they both have like O's in them. I just try to assume that they're like the same because they're twins or whatever. But yeah, Billy and Tommy,
Bobby and Tommy, yeah, that would work too.
Yeah, Billy and Tommy find a dog, and they're like, "We want to keep the dog, Mom." And Vision and Wanda are kind of like, I don't know. Wanda's a bit more receptive to it.
Yeah, she's okay with it.
But Vision's like, no, we can't have this. And sort of Vision sort of sets it up as like, and so Wanda and Vision compromise is like, listen, you gotta be 10 years old to own this dog. And next thing you know, they look at each other, it's like, no, don't you do it. And they grow up another 5 years and become 10-year-olds. So you're like, now we can own a dog. And it's like, oh, you pesky kids. And it's like, they did this in front of Agnes again. And she doesn't even like. I mean, she
doesn't bat an eye.
No, in fact, she makes a joke about it. It's like, man, these kids age fast. It's like, why aren't you freaking out? So obviously, it just shows that
Well, it's something that we've established. Whether or not Agnes is indeed Agatha Harkness, or Agatha Harkness, or Mephisto, or whatever. We knew that she and maybe some of the residents have some sort of knowledge of what's going on. So she's probably playing along with the fact that this is going on.
Yeah, it's definitely super, like, bizarre, right? And we sort of, at least this episode is sort of like a beginning of, like, cutting back and forth between Wanda and what's happening inside of this whole
Westview anomaly.
And Monica Rambeau and all the store people, as well as Darcy and all the other sort of side characters, trying to figure out what is the game plan. How do we get Wanda out of this or whatever?
Yeah, and they leave a little bit of inkling that maybe Monica leaving so abruptly has altered her physique, altered her. Basically, I wouldn't say molecular structure, but basically, it's implying that she might be turning into Photon.
Yeah, because they sort of mention, I forget if this is like in the next episode, but they do sort of like hint at like, yeah, there's some weird stuff going on with Monica, at least in terms of her blood tests. And stuff.
That was in this episode. They also mentioned that they couldn't get a reading on her X-ray charts.
Yeah, so it's definitely like being inside there is definitely sort of like a very, at least coming back out is very does something to people's bodies, which is interesting, right?
Yeah.
So basically, at least Sword tries to once again send a drone out to communicate with Wanda.
Well, before you go to that, there's a bit of sort of a power struggle with Monica and I was say Director Hayward.
Yeah, I think Director Hayward.
There's like Hayward's like he's oversimplifying things and making Wanda seem like the bad guy. Like she is just the bad guy. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts. But Monica, who's been inside and knows how it feels, knows what it is like to be basically part of Wanda's hive mind. Not a hive mind, but that's the best way that I can explain it.
Yeah, under Wanda's control, essentially.
Yeah. She realizes, she's feeling guilt. Not guilt, but grief. Yeah. So maybe we could talk her down, but Hayward's like, no, we can't do that. She's a terrorist. She's had allegiance with Ultron, with Hydra. She's a checkered past.
Yeah, and we do get like a bit of a rundown of like I guess of stuff she's done, and I mean it does sort of line up with a lot of, at least in the MCU, what a lot of like government people have felt about Wanda is that, especially since what happened in Civil War, with
the event, the leading up to the Sokovia Accords.
Yeah, that they feel that Wanda, obviously due to her like allegiances before, but also just like her power set, they feel she's a bit of a liability that you can't fully like trust her 100%. And obviously seeing what she's done with this town, it definitely sort of leads Hayward to be like, yeah, no, she's a threat. We gotta take her down.
Like there's like I said, there's no if and or buts about it. Just like we gotta take her down. Now, do we know that? Because later on, like you were saying they were gonna bring in a drone to talk to Wanda.
Yeah,
and unknowingly to Monica, there was like some sort of weapon attached.
Yeah, it was armed with a missile,
mm-hmm.
and it was willing to.
Also, so they confirmed it was a missile. Okay, because I was wondering if they were confirming it was actual, it was a lethal weapon or not, or more like a stun gun or something like that.
No, I'm pretty sure it was like at least because it looked like I wasn't sure if she pulled out the drone, but basically like I'm not sure. Basically, it was armed and went ready to fire at Wanda, and then of course they lose the drone signal, only for Wanda to come out of the little
hexagon.
Yeah, the hexagon thing, which Darcy sort of calls a hex, which I guess is kind of like a little funny like meta joke of like she's the Scarlet Witch and she does a little hex.
Yeah.
Which also, I guess, to make another little bit sidetrack, they do sort of like I guess poke fun at the fact that I guess in terms of the MCU, Wanda was never given like no one ever calls Wanda the Scarlet Witch.
No, they don't. I had to like backtrack like yeah, we don't really refer to her as the Scarlet Witch. Even like people who like read comics and all that stuff, whenever they're talking about Wanda, they talk about her like her natural name, Wanda Maximoff. They never call her the Scarlet Witch unless they're talking about in comics.
Yeah, which I agree. It's very sort of like she never got like a little like thing. Like, because obviously in universe, people will call Captain America either, they'll call him Captain America. Mm-hmm. We'll call Tony Stark Iron Man. We'll call Bruce Banner the Hulk when he becomes the Hulk. Obviously, Thor is his name. It's like various characters do have these names. But, like Wanda does seem like one of the few that's sort of like,
Do they call Scarlet Witch, Black Widow the Black Widow? I don't think so.
I think they do it as a code name.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the time...
Do they call Clint Hawkeye?
I think they might have said it in Thor, because that's when he first showed up.
Mm-hmm.
But I could be wrong.
I know they made reference to the name Hawkeye, like, using the bird's nest and whatever.
Yeah.
So that's kind of stuff. But anyways, yeah, it's weird how, it's funny, it's a little, funny note to talk about.
Yeah, so to pull it back, basically Wanda comes out of the Hex area, sort of like pulling out the drone, is like, yo, leave me alone, alright?
I like where I am. If you fuck with me, I'm gonna you back.
Yeah, pretty much. He's sort of like, listen, alright, this is my home. This is me. So back off. And obviously Hayward is sort of like, you got a bunch of people in there. Trapped.
That's a no-no.
Yeah, that's a big no-no. We can't let you do that. And Monica is sort of trying to be a mediator. She's trying to like, listen, Wanda, I know what you're going through. All right, you gotta. We can work things out. Mm-hmm. We can help you. We can help you. And she's sort of like, what could you possibly do to help me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because basically, from Monica's perspective, obviously you said before, like Wanda's experiencing guilt. Well, not guilt, grief.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know why we're thinking about guilt right now.
Yeah.
Did I do something wrong? I don't know.
No, but she's obviously grieving for Vision.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, from what we can tell, she sort of set up this whole thing to just be with Vision and like live a normal, happy life. And it's definitely a bit crazy for her to do that with a bunch of people that against their will. But it's sort of her way of coping. And Monica, who's lost her mother, having been like snapped out of existence for 5 years and only to come back and realize her mother's gone, she probably has those similar thoughts, right?
Yeah.
So, that's probably from her perspective, like I can help her somehow. But Hayward's obviously like, no, she's too dangerous to be kept alive.
Mm-hmm. That's the perfect way to sum it up. and essentially she pulls a Magneto and like gets all these guns to aim at one person, which is Hayward.
Yeah, like Hayward definitely sort of she uses her like magic abilities to like turn the soldiers on him. Granted, they don't shoot him, but they get pretty close.
Now, one thing you forgot to mention is that the dog, whose name is Sparky, that's a literal callback to Tom King's Vision, which is one of the inspirations for what's going on in WandaVision. Because in that book, and I'm pretty sure I talked about this before, in WandaVision, I'm sorry, in Tom King's Vision, it's basically Vision creating his synthesoid family and trying to live a mundane, normal life in suburbia, and eventually what happens in the book is a bit of a spoiler in the book, is that the family gets attacked by the Grim Reaper, who is the brother of Wonder Man, who's like basically whose brain patterns were modeled to be used for Vision. And like he's like no, you bastards, you my brother, and all that stuff. And eventually they had him killed. They buried him in the backyard without Vision knowing. He later found out because the neighbor's dog, literally dug it up, found the corpse, and it still had him still having his weapon. Electrocuted the dog, and then they brought it back for. Then Vision brought him back as a cyber dog named Sparky.
Well, that's certainly not what happens to Sparky in this episode. No,
but he does die in that book too.
All right, but speaking of which, we sort of cut back to Wanda with her kids because the dog went missing. He ran off, and they do find him dead. And the kids are very sort of like, "Why don't you just bring him back, Mom?" Because the kids definitely like
they know something.
Yeah, they definitely know something about the fact that they at the very least know that Wanda is capable of doing these sort of fantastical things, right? And they sort of keep on trying to imply that, Mom, why can't you just bring him back? You sort of like how, because obviously Wanda has done a similar thing with Vision in a sense of using her powers to somehow reanimate him. But Wanda sort of tries to put a lesson as like, listen, kids, we can't.
Very, very 80s sitcom kind of thing to do.
Yeah, usually
sit the kids down. We gotta talk.
Yeah, it's sort of like one of those sort of like lesson at the end of the episode or whatever kind of things that a lot of those 80s sitcoms would do. Sort of like, this is a valuable lesson. You have to listen or whatever. And of course, we also forgot that Vision goes to work. And one of his coworkers, I forget his name.
His name is Norm.
Norm. Okay, Norm. Like, essentially, the office gets an email from Sword, and they're sort of like, ha ha ha, this is funny or whatever. And Norm is able to snap out.
No. It's because Vision tampered with his mind that he snapped out of it.
Oh, okay, all right. But Vision tampers with Norm's mind. He's able to snap out of it for a little bit, and sort of like just tells Vision, the situation.
Yeah, he's just like, where am I? What's going on? I need to call my family. How long have I been? Please help me.
Yeah, pretty much. And Vision sort of like, who's done this to you? Like, it's Wanda. Wanda's,
Well, they say she's doing it, and this is what I'm saying. Like, a lot of people are still like, are insinuating that maybe it is or maybe it isn't Wanda, because she could also. This is what I'm saying, that Agnes may or may not be Mephisto, and that's if you want to go with the Mephisto route that he is in this show. That is totally dependent on that. Now, of course, there's other things to talk about, and that is, also that Sword kind of knew not why, but what they were doing with Vision's body, because they were taking it apart apparently.
Yeah, because we do sort of get sort of Haywood sort of drops that information on everybody that we did get this footage from at Sword at least a couple weeks ago, right? And it shows Wanda coming in, breaking into the Sword facility, and obviously they had sort of Vision's body sort of like
Mhm.
torn up, sort of trying to see what makes him tick, and she just sort of carries it off.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's one of the things that because she did that, she's in violation of the Sokovia Accords. Because apparently, one thing is that if Vision's ever damaged, he doesn't want to be like he doesn't want to be used as a weapon for someone else.
Yeah, because he was one of the heroes to sign on to the Sokovia Accords, I believe. He was on the side. He was on that side. But yeah.
Okay, this is my question though. What were they doing to Vision's body?
I mean, it is interesting because I assume they were just trying to like research into like what made Vision, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is going to be something I think I'll discuss a little bit because I do have a theory, a crackpot theory that I probably will discuss.
Dude, honestly, right now everyone has a crackpot theory.
like
for the last few episodes we had about talking about this, I was literally, and we've said this once again, I am literally Charlie from Always Sunny being about Pepe Sylvia.
Yeah, I know. I
have become that meme now.
I mean, yeah, you've definitely gone off on like trying to like pinpoint Mephisto on everything, but these past 2 episodes have made me go into my own little crackpot theory, which I'll discuss at the end, towards the end of the episode.
But essentially, we're coming to the end of the episode, which honestly was probably one of the most tense moments I've seen in the past, and for something that we consider the MCU.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably one of the more tense scenes. It's when Vision just got done burying Sparky, because as I said earlier, Sparky died, and kids were like a little just sad and tragic kind of stuff. Because once you lose your pet dog, you're very sad for the pet for the next few weeks, or more. Depending, that dog is very important to us, and so Vision basically says, "I know what you're doing. You can't be doing this. You got to stop. Maybe you're not doing this subconsciously or whatever." And basically Wanda just like I don't know what you're talking about, and leaves. And as she's leaving, this started off kind of funny, but then it started getting a little concerning. Is when as soon as she starts to leave, the credits start rolling,
right? And
then Vision keeps talking. You're used to like watching all of these sitcoms. Like once the credits roll, it's over, baby. But no, it just keeps going, and eventually it starts to get into a shouting match.
Yeah, because Vision's very sort of like asking Wanda all of the like obviously
the questions we've been asking.
Yeah, sort of like, Wanda, how come there's no other kids besides our kids in this place? I walk past the playground every day to work, and I see no kids there. And sort of like, and it continuing on like, Norm has a family, all right? Like, you're keeping people trapped here.
Mm-hmm.
This is crazy, and obviously, it becomes a war of words, and eventually, it kind of comes close to them maybe squaring up.
Yeah, and I'll be honest. There was a part of me though that was like, man, would it be funny if we had like a quick like cut to like Billy and Tommy, like in their bunk beds or whatever, and be like, "Hey Tommy, do you hate it when Mom and Dad fight?"
Yeah, I mean, it would be. I guess that I don't know. I feel like that would.
I hate it when Mom and Dad fight.
I don't know. I mean, it would be funny, but I feel like at the same time it would break the tension of the scene.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing that's why they didn't do something like that.
Well, they would never done that, but that would have been like. That'd been just kind of like an in joke. It's just like
I mean,
just
yeah.
Like every
yeah.
kid who he hears their parents arguing, like, I hate it when Mom and Dad fight.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. It's kind of weird. But obviously, the big thing is at the end of the.
Well, no. Before you go to that, it's that Vision doesn't have a memory of before Westview.
Yeah, you're right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, he's like, I don't know my life outside of this. I'm terrified.
Yeah, he's very. Yeah. Vision's very sort of like, what happens? I don't remember anything besides coming here. Everything else is like, a blank to him, and obviously we know why, because he died.
Mm-hmm.
And probably when Wanda used her powers to reanimate him, he only had memories of, what's happened so far.
Mm-hmm.
And Wanda's very sort of like,
no, it's fine, honey.
Everything is fine. You have to trust me, right?
Yeah, but it's one of those like, but why? I trust you, but why?
Yeah, it's like, why? What is going on?
Mm-hmm.
Why am I feeling these things?
And then the doorbell rings.
And, initially, Vision sort of like, thinking that it's only something that she's done
Yeah.
in order to like end
Yeah.
the conversation, but it's not her essentially.
But that's what we're led to believe.
Yeah.
And like I'll say this, they did earlier at some point the kids did ask her about if she had a brother, and then we start teasing this scene of who's at the door, and then I'll say this, the way they edited it was such a good job, because it starts off with like her opening the door, we see Marcy's reaction like, wait, it can't be, and then we just see the hair. And Vision asking who this guy is, and that tells you that's Quicksilver, but it's not our Quicksilver. It's not the Quicksilver we've seen from Age of Ultron. It's Quicksilver from the X-Men.
Yeah. So the rumors,
which I'll say it now. You stay on Twitter a lot.
I don't look at a lot of like trending hashtags and stuff. I usually just sort of on Twitter, I'm just sort of just looking at stuff, and that's about it. I check Twitter maybe once or twice a day. I'm not like fully consistent on it because I don't know, I'm just not like huge into social media.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing you were just having
well, it's one of those things where I'm like, I kind of knew that people wouldn't shut up.
So you had to go to Twitter and just see everybody's reactions.
Yeah.
I
And
getcha.
my God, did it blow up.
Well, obviously, because it's even funnier too, because as that's happening, Darcy looks at the TV and sees what's going on, and she's sort of like, wait, she recast Pietro?
So she knows that's not our Pietro.
Yeah, Darcy knows that's not, Aaron Taylor Johnson. She's like, wait, that's not how Pietro looks like. What's going on here?
And this should even be more informative when Vision doesn't recognize him.
Yeah.
Well, granted, it will probably be because he can't remember anything before that.
Yeah, probably. But in any case, the rumors of Evan Peters being on, and now being, that sort of fan theory of him being like, oh, maybe they're gonna replace him and have him be Quicksilver, is, it's a thing technically, because obviously, like, through Darcy, which is like probably like I was like, this is like the most meta thing this show has done so far, because it feels like a lot of the jokes, so like a lot of things happening in this show are like weird, like meta stuff, like the pointing out that Wanda has never been called the Scarlet Witch before, and and now with this, like, Darcy being like, wait, she recast Pietro? Her reaction is much like our reaction of like, wow, I can't believe this we have Quicksilver, but it's the Quicksilver from, Days of Future Past and Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix. It's Evan Peters. It's super weird.
Yeah, and now this has brought up the whole idea, is this the introduction of the multiverse? Did she unintentionally pluck out a Quicksilver from another universe, or is this some guy, or like whoever's in charge of this brought back a version of Pietro that isn't Pietro, or made to seem like Pietro? We can get onto that with the next episode, because the next episode clears some stuff. It clears a little bit of some stuff up. In terms of Pietro, because the weird thing is, this is a lot of people saying, like, whether or not you like Aaron Taylor Johnson's version of Quicksilver, having Evan Peters, a former Quicksilver, here on the MCU storylines, in the MCU world, it's just crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty insane in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing Evan Peters show up. It is like I said, it's kind of a bit of a funny meta joke when you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, the next episode sort of clears a lot of the. I think a good chunk of like why exactly it's Evan Peters as Quicksilver here.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no. I guess my response to it was sort of like, "Wow, I can't believe we actually went there."
Mm-hmm. We are going. we're going where we always wanted the MCU to go, which is crazy. Like, let's go nuts. And we are going nuts.
Yeah, it's I would have to agree. It is sort of like we're jumping into. I mean, obviously, I think WandaVision was sort of billed as this sort of like weird and wacky show, and now we have fully gotten to that point where,
and it's gotten dark.
Yeah, it has like these tense moments coming in, and it's definitely, I think, one of at least this episode, episode 5, has definitely established WandaVision as sort of the most interesting and experimental thing to come out of the MCU in a while.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you this: do you think this is leading to the multiverse?
After watching episode 6, I don't think so. I think initially, finishing this episode, I did think about it, but having seen episode 6, I don't think that's necessarily the case. I feel like, given the Doctor Strange, you know, Multiverse of Madness, I feel like that's where we're gonna get really into multiverse stuff. I feel like, because episode 6 definitely explains a good chunk of of why Pietro looks the way he does.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to talk about your cockback theory, or do you want to talk about it after we talk about episode 6?
No, I feel like I should bring that up at the end, because I feel that one incorporates a little bit of.
Okay, so quick rating on episode 5.
Episode 5, I think it's a 9 out of 10. I think it was a really good episode.
Oh yeah, no, I'm with you. I enjoyed it. I laughed a bit. I'm not lying when I said the tense moments with Wanda and Vision wasn't like literally. I was like, because like whenever you hear your parents fight, you're like, and you're a kid, you're like, oh, please don't fight. Yeah, it was kind of like that for me, because I was like, Vision. I mean, I get Vision's point, but I'm at the same time I'm like, Vision, don't piss her off, man. You don't know what could happen.
Yeah, she has mad friggin' like insane powers.
She somehow brought you back to life. You don't know that yet, but she somehow brought you back to life.
Yeah, like Wanda clearly has some crazy powers. I mean, heck, in this past episode, episode 5, they do sort of bring up like this is like something we've never seen her done before.
This is really exploring her powers, which is something none of the movies have ever done. And if you know the comics, and obviously a lot of people will point this out as the reference for this show is the House of M, where she basically altered the reality like global wise, and it's just what the fuck.
Yeah,
and and I'll say this: it's funny how they add a little horror in there, and Evan Peters is also known for being an American Horror Story. So it's just that little extra like, oh, you know it's gonna be scary because Evan Peters is here.
Well, I mean, yeah.
And all right, so Jay, let's start off with episode 6. And like I said before, we are going spoiler because it's kind of hard not to go spoiler with this episode.
Yeah. So episode 6 definitely it starts off with the intro,
which is very 90s, especially with that song.
Yeah, like I feel like I know a lot of people have compared the intro to something similar to like Malcolm in the Middle. I don't know. Like a part of me gets that. I personally feel like we're in like really early 2000s, like 2001 kind of thing, because we do sort of like it is sort of a moment where essentially the kids, Billy and Tommy, are sort of addressing the camera, explaining like what's happening today. It's like, oh, it's Halloween, it's our Halloween episode or whatever, and Halloween is for like such and such or whatever, and we sort of get to see a bit more of like the kids' personalities. Like Billy
he's the good kid.
Yeah.
He's the sweet one.
Yeah,
Tommy's the...
Yeah, Tommy's the rambunctious,
Also, can I just say, it's weird to see the insinuation that Vision might be his kids.
I mean, I don't know. I didn't pay attention to that. I don't think I ever saw.
When he took the paper and then Vision took it back and was like...
in the intro. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, no, I didn't... I kind of forgot about that part, but... I mean, with someone like Tommy, he's a bit of a rambunctious scamp.
Listen, I'm not saying beat your kids, but
well, I mean, I guess you have the Vision. Vision's a robot. He doesn't understand the correct ways to raise a child. He probably just like analyzes like, probably the best way to discipline you is to hit you with this newspaper. And like, and Wanda's probably just like, Viz, no, we can't do that. It's like, but I mean, you know, I think logically it makes sense. I don't know, but yeah.
At this point, you're arguing with the wall.
I mean, yeah, you're arguing with the robot with logic, but yeah, no. It turns out, you know, Pietro just hanging out. You know, he's sleeping on the couch. He's just living here now.
He's the cool, lazy uncle that you see. He's the Uncle Jesse of the show.
Essentially, yeah.
And I remember hearing someone comparing because of the opening, they were thinking Malcolm in the Middle. He's the oldest brother, the one that always got in an argument with the mom.
He went to military school.
I came back with an Asian wife.
Yeah, I remember that guy.
Yeah.
I get that. I get that. But yeah, it's I don't remember his name either. It's been a long
time since I've seen Malcolm in the Middle.
Yeah.
We should have gone on Frankie Muniz cameo for if this was really a Malcolm in the Middle. I would have done it. You were saying.
But yeah, you know, so the whole episode is sort of kind of like a Halloween special, I guess. Everybody's dressing up in costumes. Mm-hmm. Wanda herself is dressed up in sort of a very classical Scarlet Witch outfit.
And in her statement, it's a Sokovian
fortune teller. Yeah, and Vision is obviously dressed in his classic Vision outfit. Mm-hmm. And you know, obviously they make fun of it because it does look kind of silly.
Yeah.
And yeah, sort of Vision sort of says like, "Oh, I'm gonna go off and be like a neighborhood watch kind of thing. I'm gonna make sure none of these kids get into any sort of
shenanigans.
Yeah, they don't like TP anybody's house." Mm-hmm. And like Wanda's sort of like, "Oh, I thought we were gonna like all go trick or treating together and stuff."
And he's like, "Well," and it's become another fight. And this is where I get my whole. Hey, Mom, I don't like your mom and dad fight with the kids.
Yeah, because they do sort of acknowledge it. Yeah, Mom and Dad have been like arguing. I don't know. They've been kind of fighting. It's a little weird. It's like we don't get it.
It's like, oh, kids.
Yeah.
I will say though, it's weird because Pietro, like usually when that kind of stuff happens, and especially in like something like Malcolm in the Middle, they never acknowledge whenever Frankie Muniz is talking to the camera. But here you can see. Pietro, Evan Peters' Pietro reacting to it, like he's looking at him.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I think I definitely get that, because I think there was like a moment when they talk about like trying to wake him up, and he's clearly like fully awake.
Yeah,
and he sort of like kind of like hears them talking, and he's like he obviously surprises them.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely interesting. But I think it just has to do with the fact, because later on in this episode, Wanda and him talk, and he does. I will say this: he definitely feels like he's not like the rest of the town who's like under control. He definitely seems like he's in his own little entity.
But you know, but back to Vision and Wanda, it's clear that Vision is kind of doing his own thing right now. Like he's doing his own investigation of what's going on, and Wanda. Because Wanda says, like, you're not supposed to do that. And he's like, I'm not supposed to do what? And it's just like, oh, power struggle with the parents. And, you know, Pietro comes in, you know, fast enough, bad pun intended, to de-escalate the situation. And he's like, don't worry, we'll go take the kids. And then, you know, Vision goes to do his own thing. And basically, this is basically Wanda, like, talking to her dead brother.
Yeah.
And, you know, they go out, have fun.
Also, Pietro dons his, like, you know, classic costume.
Yeah.
With the weird hair and everything.
And he gets Tommy to dress up the same.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny because Speed looks a little bit like his uncle.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. And as you know, they're going off trick or treating and doing stuff. Sword is up to some stuff. And basically, we get a very heated conversation with Hayward and Monica. And basically saying, we can't trust her. She has done so much bad. And basically, he's saying to her that we can't be this way because of events that have transpired.
Yeah, he sort of like kind of just sort of implies that pretty much now, like the past 5 years, ever since the snap, we're not good for like sword or whatever. Like which I guess kind of makes sense because like it does at least during Endgame, like at least after the time skip, it does we do sort of it gets implied that really none of the superheroes have done much except for Hawkeye, who's been on like a vigilante streak,
and Hulk
doing like a little bit of service here and there. So there wasn't like a whole lot of superheroes out there. So he sort of mentions like you don't know what it took to keep the lights on here. So like it does sort of imply that Sword basically had to do a lot of like things just to try to maintain some form of peace around the world. Which I mean, yeah, it is like he's Hayward's very sort of a one-track mind of like, listen, we gotta solve this option like the fastest way possible, and the fastest way possible is to just murk Wanda.
Yeah, just terminate the problem.
Yeah,
which I see a lot of hate coming to Hayward, and for me, I'm just like he's just generic, bad military guy.
Yeah, he's very he does sort of exemplify that sort of like character role, just like the army man who just only thinks whose only solution is just to shoot the thing, and then it'll no longer be a problem. But obviously, all the other characters like, listen, you're gonna try to go to war against Wanda, and it ain't gonna go well.
My man, she has magic powers.
She has magic powers and almost made your men shoot you. All right, it ain't ending well.
This ain't gonna happen.
Yeah.
Which I'll say this, I don't want him to be that way. I'm hoping there's more of an explanation as to why.
Yeah, I do sort of like, because it does. It would make him a bit generic, right? If he just sort of continues this sort of route of just being like, hey, we gotta take her down no matter what. She's a threat to the whole world, and that's it. But
I will say though, when you're considering the fact that when I first saw this and knowing that and thinking that maybe there's a multiverse thing going on, his speech did seem very anti-mutant.
Right, because he sort of mentioned sort of like an over-reliance on superpower people, right? Yeah. And
I'm just like, man, I'm getting a weird like Senator Kelly vibes from this guy. But anyways, he basically tells Darcy, Wu, and Monica to basically get the fuck out of my operation.
Yeah, he finds them as they're all like liabilities. They can't no longer be trusted with going through with the operation to just take down Wanda. So he just sort of has them sort of kick out the base. But obviously they're sort of like, no, we can't.
They fight their way out of it with no like repercussions. I'm like, you guys are in an open area. Someone could see you.
Well, they dragged the bodies and hit them.
Fair enough.
But yeah, basically Monica and Wu are essentially Monica is planning to go back in there with some heavy duty
from a was it an aerospace engineer?
Yeah, like some sort of like vehicle.
We didn't mention it before, but we'll mention it later on.
Yeah, some sort of vehicle to get in. And meanwhile, here's where Darcy sort of drops the big like thing that sort of confirms that going in there ain't great for you because she is changing on like a cellular level or something like that, right?
Which is leading a lot of people to be like, oh, she's gonna go photon on all of us.
Yeah, because she does have powers in the comics.
She was a Captain Marvel at some point. So yeah, what was it about? Yeah, no.
It's actually interesting too because they do bring up Captain Marvel a little bit.
That's right. We forgot to mention in the last episode they bring up the fact that Wanda could have 1v1 Thanos, no problem.
Yeah. Monica is very sort of like, I think Wanda could have taken him on if he didn't like call in that airstrike or whatever. But we was like, I don't know. I feel like Captain Marvel could have 1v1 Thanos as well. And Monica's like,
maybe.
Yeah, but we're talking about Wanda though. Let's not talk about Captain Marvel. So there's, and in this episode, continues a little bit of that with Hayward being like, he sort of, I understand your relationship with Captain Marvel and stuff like that. So. Yeah, it kind of like it's kind of like interesting because like obviously the last time they interacted was when she was a child
that we know of,
I guess. But yeah, it is interesting just seeing how clearly something has happened between her and Captain Marvel potentially over the years, and she doesn't necessarily hold her in the same light as she used to as a kid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and usually we talk about theories towards the end, but like I'll say this: my theory though is that, and there's a lot of people's theories that, you know, Carol might have accidentally, you know, gave Monica's mom cancer.
Yeah, it's
because that would be interesting. Freaking dark, but that would be interesting.
Yeah, it certainly is kind of interesting. And I mean, it would be insane if that was the theory. If that came out to be true. But anyways, yeah, basically that's sort of their plan. Darcy's sort of like, I'm gonna stay behind because there's clearly something like going on with Hayward. I'm gonna figure out what that is. So, yeah. Meanwhile, back inside, they're doing their whole Halloween special.
Vision is going around. He's going farther than they are. Like he's basically walking his way outside of town.
Yeah.
And he's noticing that there's not that many people, and they're all kind of stuck in a loop.
Yeah, and at a certain point, they sort of just stop.
Yeah.
They sort of just like freeze.
And we know he's going to the end because we forgot to mention that Darcy found out that they're tracking Vision. They're able to track Vision.
Yeah. She sort of like has her laptop, and she's sort of like, they've been tracking Vision. I wonder why.
Leaving outside of town, there's clearly people talking, walking, and he's starting to freak out.
Yeah, and he sees Agnes, like in the car, just sort of like not really doing anything. He's sort of like, Agnes, where are you? Are you lost or something? Yeah. She's like, yeah, I was gonna go to the main square. I don't know where it is. It's like, well, I'm pretty sure it's at the main square. How'd you get lost if you've been living here all your life? And for a moment, she says like a weird like, ha 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 ha. He's like, are you all right?
Look, I'm gonna do my mind thing. You're gonna be all right.
Yeah. He puts his mind thing, breaks her from the hold, and she's sort of like, Vision, are you here to save me? Or like, are the Avengers here? It's like, yeah, but I don't know what an Avenger is though. It's like, wait, what do you mean? Am I dead? It's like, wait, what do you mean? You're not dead. Why would you say that? And she's like, because you're dead.
And she's like, dead.
Yeah, that was the part that was really sort of like, oh, she's just like she's kind of weird even without the fucking Wanda messing with her.
No, it could be because Wanda messed with her.
It could be, right? But yeah, basically he sort of like puts her back, gets her back under Wanda's spell or whatever, and he's like, I'm gonna fix this. I'm gonna get us all. I'm gonna figure out what the hell's going on and stuff. And we sort of we've cut back to Wanda talking to Pietro. Oh yeah, we also forgot to mention that Tommy develops powers.
Yeah, as they were talking, and throughout the conversation between Wanda and Pietro, Wanda's basically kind of like, I'm not sure you're my brother.
Yeah, she's sort of like, why do you look? I feel like you look different. And he's sort of like,
he acknowledges it.
Yeah, he sort of acknowledges it. And he's like, basically, sort of his reasoning is like, well, I mean, I feel like I wouldn't want to relive some of the stuff. If I was like, I think the line he said was like, if I was in Shangri-La, I wouldn't want anything to remind me of like the outside world or whatever. So implying that this might, like, the way Pietro looks like might be like Wanda subconsciously like not having her brother's face. Like, she has her brother, but he doesn't look like her brother, so that way she's not reminded that he's dead, right?
Yeah, because like even he's like, listen, all I know is that I got shot up, and then I heard you calling, and I'm here.
Yeah,
that's all I know what happened. And then like, as they're talking, they do a bit of like, more meta jokes, like, Quicksilver's like, kick ass, like, yeah, kick ass, and then like Wanda's like, kick ass, like, oh, that sounds weird. And then because like Aaron Taylor Johnson and Evan Peters are both in kick ass.
Yeah, to be fair, it took me a while to get that one, and you had to explain it to me, and I was like, oh, that makes sense.
And at some point they're like, what happened to your accent?
What happened to your accent? Which I will say, and I completely forgot about this.
You son of a bitch, you were right.
Yeah, I was right, because we've talked about this earlier, where I was like, why doesn't Wanda have her Sokovian accent? And we couldn't figure out a good answer. And I was sort of like, well, maybe she, in this sort of weird reality thing, she just has like a regular American accent because she's parodying like American sitcoms. But maybe once we get back to the real world, she'll have her regular accent. And I was right, because when Wanda comes out and tells Hayward and Sword, like, listen, get off my property, stop bothering me, she has her Sokovian accent. And I was like, I knew it. That makes, like, clearly, like, she, like, to still have her accent, and it's just there just to keep up the illusion of her being in a small suburban town in America.
Your little theory thread was confirmed.
Well, to be fair, it wasn't that hard of a thing to, I feel like, to
disprove.
To disprove, just because, like, it feels so weird that they would just drop the accent, because I feel like it's just, like, without a good explanation. But yeah, I was sort of right. But yeah, no, they do sort of make the jokes like, Pietro, why don't you have your accent? Why don't you have your accent? And they sort of drop it. It's like, well, I mean, you know.
And this is where we find out that Tommy has developed super speed powers, just like his uncle.
Yeah, and they sort of like, he sort of just runs around the town with nobody like batting an eye, which is obviously kind of, again, weird, because Vision once again is like, we should be hiding our powers.
Can I say that in the background there's something weird going on? In the movie theater, they have The Incredibles and The Parent Trap. Now, The Parent Trap, I get. That was a movie. If you're going with the Lindsay Lohan movie, that came out in the 90s. The Incredibles?
Yeah, I will admit, I did notice that, and I did not think about that until you mentioned it. Because obviously I saw that, it's like, oh, that's a little neat Disney reference. But now it's like, The Incredibles didn't come out in like the early 2000s. It came out in like 2005 or 6, right?
Yeah.
So like, cause like it feels like that's like we are in like the 2000s, but yeah, like obviously The Parent Trap came out in the 90s when Lindsay Lohan was big, and you know.
And I think this is where like we're not getting the exact year, but I think we're getting like in between the years, like 90s, 2000s.
Yeah, like we're getting like a general like view of, you know, of the sitcom they're parodying, what era, like a specific date, but like the era of that time, right? So, but yeah, it is kind of like interesting. I think possibly another part of it could just be like, for maybe Wanda, she sort of like thinks like subconsciously that's just something like she just thought up of
a
like
superhero family,
yeah,
and like trapping the parents,
yeah,
kind of thing. But no, to go back to the main story, it is, you know, Wanda continues to talk to Pietro, and it's nice for her, and she's like kind of wishing that, you know, her parents are back, and you know, she has a quick moment where she just looks away and looks back to Pietro, and he's all dead.
Yeah,
again.
Same thing with, like, you know, from the last time with Vision, he just sees Pietro's dead body with bullet holes and stuff.
Still Evan Peters' face.
Yeah, it's still Evan Peters' face, which is interesting. But yeah, she's definitely sort of like, oh god.
Yeah, and it's weird because like, this is the weird thing. Evan Peters is continuously asking her like, how did she do this? How was she able to do all this? Especially because since they brought up, where were the kids at the first time? Because this is a Halloween episode, you know, kids are going out trick-or-treating. There's a lot more kids than were in the last few episodes.
Yeah. Evan Peters does sort of, Evan Peters Quicksilver is definitely sort of like, how are you doing these things? I want to know. And there's also a moment when they're having a conversation where he kind of sort of like, there's a bit where he sort of like, tries to be like, try to make Wanda less sort of like guilty for like doing this, because she does sort of like, wait, so you don't think it's wrong that I'm doing this? He's like, I mean, I don't think so. So I feel like at the same, that's why I feel like,
I'll let you finish before.
Yeah, but which I think further leads to this Pietro being sort of like a figment of Wanda's imagination, right? It's not, obviously, it's like not the, like, she didn't get like Pietro's real body somehow and just like magically teleport it there. It definitely seems like it's sort of like, this is her way of like trying to make sense of what's going on with herself and trying to like justify the reason, like what she's done, right?
Or, and I'll get to that, but I'll get to that later. But no, it's funny because like in House of M, I think at the time Quicksilver was also dead, and when she brought him back, he was also kind of like telling Wanda, "No, this is okay. This is okay what you did. There's nothing wrong here. There's nothing wrong here." But she clearly did something wrong, and eventually led to like, no more mutants.
Yeah, pretty crazy.
Yeah, and so as they're talking, Vision basically gets out the bubble. He's out of the bubble.
Yeah, he eventually finds the edge of the town, and he comes out, and Hayward and the rest of the Sword members sort of see that he's coming out, and he sort of like
they do nothing.
Yeah, they basically kind of do nothing. They sort of like,
which I don't blame them.
Yeah, he's sort of like, I think Hayward's like, man, even he wants out, sort of like, and they just sort of watch Vision coming out. But the thing is, because obviously Wanda's powers have kept him alive, once he's out, he starts to sort of disintegrate and like slowly die. Right? And Darcy, who was left behind because she was still looking at...
And she found an important document and sent it to Willie just in time.
Yeah. And she sort of like, and she goes out and she's like, hey, why aren't you helping him, right? You gotta help him. And they sort of restrained her. And they just sort of keep observing what's happening to Vision as he's slowly dying. And that's when Billy starts
to develop his own powers.
Yeah, he starts to develop his powers and starts getting visions of his dad being outside of the bubble. And he's like, we gotta tell Mom. And once they go tell Wanda, and Pietro has a bit of a funny line. It's like, "What you probably, what like? There's no way your dead husband can die twice, right?" And she sort of just like shoots him.
Which, by the way, this will be the third time, really.
Yeah,
because he died twice in Infinity War.
I mean, yeah, he did technically die twice. Once, this would be his third time technically because he died. He had Wanda kill him. Thanos reversed time to pull the stone out and killed him that time.
Yeah.
Which, it's pretty funny. This would technically be his third time. But,
Man, Vision just needs to stop dying.
Well, he has to stop getting into scenarios where he dies, right? But anyways, Vision sort of, Wanda sort of like uses her powers, senses where Vision is, and decides to expand the hexagon. The hex.
Jesus, that was terrifying.
I mean, yeah, because she basically uses it to swallow back up Vision into the hex in order to keep him alive, but also just swallows up the entire sword like operation base they were using, and pretty much a majority of the sword agents get swallowed in to Wanda's hex. Like Darcy gets swallowed in because she was accidentally she wasn't accidentally. She was no, you're right. She wasn't accidentally. She was like handcuffed to like a freaking car or whatever, and she's like, "Oh fudge!" and she gets absorbed in.
All these other sword agents, and she basically turns the whole the whole little camp into a carnival.
Yeah, it's funny. It is sort of funny. I guess that's sort of her way of seeing them, because a lot of them turn into clowns and stuff. Which I don't know. I guess that's her way of like making them like, oh, they're just a bunch of clowns, they're a bunch of idiots. But yeah, Hayward and like maybe a couple of his agents get out. Monica and Wu were already driving away and see the thing expanding. So they're like, punch it, we got to get out of here.
Yeah.
So they, along with Hayward and a couple other, like a van full of sword agents, are like pretty much the only people left that can probably stop Wanda. And yeah, now like it's an even bigger grasp of like just a bunch of places that have been essentially taken in by the hex, and that's where sort of the episode ends.
And Jesus Christ,
yeah, no, it's pretty crazy.
Remember when I said this is gonna be a slow burn, and then at some point it's gonna keep rolling and rolling to coolness?
Yeah,
holy shit, are we rolling?
Yeah, it took about halfway through the season, but yeah, no, stuff starts getting crazy. Like, I think I mentioned it before, but how the hell are we gonna wrap this shit up in 3 episodes? Like that's a lot. I mean,
and I remember Paul Bettany saying that the last 2 episodes are gonna be more of standard MCU stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe by the next episode we'll like get out of the whole sitcom into more of the story-driven parts.
Yeah, I think that's definitely possible.
Also, there's been rumors of a hidden 10th episode. I'm like, I'd rather just tell me there's 10.
Yeah, because usually it doesn't make sense for them to hide an episode. Like it seems odd. But yeah, no, it's kind of this episode definitely cements that shit's going down.
Oh man, I mean, quick rating before we get talk about potential like theories.
Yeah, I would say also. I feel like I would also bring this to a 9, just because just the conversations that Wanda has with Pietro are super interesting.
Fun, it's funny.
Yeah, it gets kind of interesting.
Evan Peters' Quicksilver is pretty fun in this world.
Yeah, he sort of like gets to play up a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And Vision, obviously, on his little side quest is super unique, and obviously the ending sort of like leaves it up to sort of like how in the hell how are we gonna get out of this situation? What are we gonna what is Monica gonna try to do to like convince Wanda to stop if they can at all?
Who is this aerospace engineer?
Yeah, that she mentions. What's gonna happen? That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on a 9 out of 10. It's just the fact that I decided to stay up late to watch these episodes tells you how great these are.
Yeah, waiting until past midnight for them to drop. That's funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, no.
And the amount of reaction online just tells you one probably because we've been like we haven't had Marvel anything for a year.
Yeah, like literally, like 2019 was the last time we had Marvel stuff, and it was Endgame and Far From Home. We were supposed to have Eternals and Black Widow alongside stuff like Falcon and the Winter Soldier and WandaVision last year. Obviously, a lot of that stuff got pushed back. And with WandaVision being the first one, yeah, I think a lot of people are sort of just like have been starved from MCU content and like, wow, all right, we're getting into the weird shit. What's going on?
We're knocking shit out of the park.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. But yeah, do you want to talk about like various theories? I guess.
Yeah, because like first of all, how can this show not make you think of theories?
Yeah, I think it definitely is there to like, because obviously you have the initial mystery of like what exactly is going on here, and now that a lot of that stuff is being unveiled, it's sort of like what's gonna happen next? Are there more stuff to learn about?
I am so glad that this show. At first I said I'd rather you just give me all the show at once, but you know what? Doing this weekly thing makes it a lot better.
Well, yeah, I feel, I think especially for a show like this where there's a lot of like trying to speculate of what's gonna happen next. If you were to just get it all in like a big content drop, you'd be like, I mean, you wouldn't have that much of a while of wait and anticipation of like what's gonna happen next. It's like, oh, it's all here. I'll just binge it in like 3 to 4 hours, and I'll watch the show, and that's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it doesn't. If they did, it would alleviate not only the hype but the interest, like the speculation, the theories that we're coming up with right now. My first theory, I'll say this. I think this is for me because I want Hayward to have more like a third dimension of a story of a character than just like I said earlier, stereotypical bad military man who only thinks about shooting. I think maybe because we haven't seen Agnes' husband, maybe he's Agnes' husband, and that's why he has a personal grudge with Wanda because he trapped his wife.
Yeah, I mean it's an interesting idea. I feel.
I mean, I'll be honest. This is just more like me throwing something out there.
Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, that would be kind of a neat sort of like third dimension, sort of like he's fully like his reasoning for like wanting to get rid of trying to just take down Wanda is that he has his wife. That would be interesting, right? But yeah, no, I guess it's sort of like one of those like it would be pretty cool kind of moments, right?
I think we already said this. We don't think this is Evan Peters. I don't think Evan Peters. I'm sorry, is the Quicksilver from another multiverse. I think we agree. It stated that this Evan Peters is basically just Aaron Taylor Johnson, but face changed.
Yeah, I definitely do think. I don't agree, especially with what's happened in episode 6. I don't agree that the idea of Wanda has pulled Evan Peters out of the this Quicksilver out of the X-Men movies and put him into the MCU. I think it's just sort of Wanda's subconscious changing Quicksilver's face in order to not, see her brother's face and have her lose her mind, because obviously, seeing her brother's face might set her off.
Mm-hmm. I think. Okay, let me ask you this: if a lot of people are saying that this is how they're going to introduce the mutants and or multiverse, do you think this is probably the best way to introduce them, or no?
Multiverse, I'm not 100% positive, just because a lot of what Wanda has done is more like reality altering stuff, not necessarily doing stuff that pulls other universes in. It's more of like a reality altering powers she's been developing. As for the mutants thing, potentially, because I know a lot of people have been saying that WandaVision could potentially be like a reverse House of M, where instead of Wanda causing no more mutants, by the end she causes a bunch of mutants to show up. Although I'd still like to lean towards the idea that the fact that the Earth was hit with 2 snaps. Well, I guess technically 3, because Thanos snapped half of all life, Hulk brought people back, and Tony used the stones to wipe out Thanos' army. Yeah, I feel like, because obviously they mentioned that that's a lot of cosmic energy just spewing out. So I always just like the idea of that, sort of like all those snaps happening on Earth cause a bunch of cosmic energy to just awaken people's hidden X gene, causing them to turn into mutants that way. Which I don't know. I think that's a lot more neat, because it just shows that the gravity of Infinity War and Endgame has ripple effects throughout the entire universe. I like to think that maybe there were already mutants and
Snap brought more out. Because how do you start off Charles Xavier's School for Mutants without him already being a mutant? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I definitely agree with that. I think, I don't know. That's why I don't know. Personally, I do like the idea of the Infinity Gauntlet snapping, causing mutants to show up. I do sort of agree though that I feel like there have been mutants in hiding before. You just that the snap caused a bunch more of them to come out.
It awakened the latent gene.
Yeah, and a bunch of people instead of just being a rare occurrence or whatever. But yeah, no, because I always thought it'd be kind of an interesting retcon of, at least in terms of what happened with Wanda and Pietro, that their exposure to the Mind Stone and all the experiments activated their X gene and caused them to develop powers that way. Because I don't know. I always assumed that would be kind of a neat way to retcon their powers or whatever, to make them officially mutants. But yeah, no.
And any other theory aside from me going that's probably Mephisto right there?
Yeah, because you are still on the sort of Agnes might be Mephisto. Maybe Evan Peters is actually Mephisto all along.
Yeah. No, I mean they're be dropping hints, especially with the kids around. Calling them demon spawns and everything is for the children. It's kind of, when you're doing the Wanda and Vision story about that kind of stuff, it's kind of hard not to involve. Now maybe you can exchange them out with some other character. Some people say Nightmare, but it's kind of hard not to think about Mephisto, because he plays such a prominent role in the involvement of Wanda and Vision's children. So it's kind of hard not to put it together. I feel like Evan Peters might be, because he's okay with what's going on, and he's encouraging her to do more.
Yeah, I definitely get that. Definitely understand that.
I think Agnes might be a scapegoat though.
Like sort of like a red herring.
Yeah, I think for one, there's probably a lot of red herrings to who's the actual villain.
Yeah. I mean, there could be no villain, right? It's just a bunch of like people with complex issues.
Mm-hmm.
But
now that'd be interesting.
Yeah, it would be interesting. But for me, I have a kind of, like I said earlier, I have a crackpot theory that I don't think I've heard a lot of people talk about, because I think I remember you mentioning, like when we last talked about WandaVision, that
supposedly Ultron, James Spader was involved.
Yeah, that supposedly James Spader, voice of Ultron, was going to be involved in some way with WandaVision. Now, obviously we don't know exactly. It could just be, from a flashback of him talking or something like that. We don't know. So, for me personally, I thought of an interesting thing.
And you told me this theory, and I was like, okay, there's actually, like, there's weight to it. This actually would make sense.
Yeah, that basically, this series would reveal that Ultron is still alive. That Ultron, because knowing Ultron from the comics, even when he gets defeated or like his body's getting destroyed, he always has like a backup somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And they do that a little bit with Age of Ultron in the movie. He's always has an extra body laying around or whatever. For me, I feel like Vision didn't destroy the last Ultron drone, but Ultron had found a way to give himself a backup file, basically. And he put himself on the internet. I don't know, this is just like a bit of a crazy theory, but and he's sort of been like roaming around the internet hidden and waiting for the like sort of right moments to like influence stuff. And I think the reason why Sword was sort of like checking out Vision's body is because they want to make a new Vision controlled by Sword, or like an army of Visions. And I think to tie those two things together, Ultron was secretly like influencing Sword to do that, so that he could essentially get a body back and use those as Ultron drones, essentially. Because remember, Ultron was the one that created the Vision's body.
He was going to use it for himself.
Yeah, he was going to use it for himself, but that's when they stole it. But the Avengers stole it, and Tony used it to put Jarvis in there and turn him into Vision. Right? So, yeah, I feel like if James Spader is going to be involved, I think that would be a crazy way for him to be involved as a sort of a hidden background villain. Like, I'm Ultron. I've been secretly influencing all of you guys, and this has been my plan all along, And, yeah, it would cause some crazy shenanigans to happen.
Yeah, and like I said, that is so true to Ultron too.
Yeah.
Just like him just continuously coming back. Because I feel he's kind of like wasted a little bit in Age of Ultron.
Yeah, he was definitely used as a little bit of a stepping stone to Thanos, because I guess like when you think about it, like a lot of the Avengers villains would need like a bit more setup. Like I forget their name, but it's like basically they're like League of Villains or whatever.
Wait, for which movie?
For Age of Ultron, like because the Avengers have their own sort of like League of Villains-esque like a Legion of Doom, essentially.
Oh, the Masters of Evil.
Yeah, the Masters of Evil, but that would like take a bit more of setup, because essentially they would just be using a bunch of villains from their past or whatever. And they're led by Baron Zemo, and obviously he wasn't a character until Civil War, so they couldn't really use that sort of thing. And a lot of other Avengers characters were either probably still kind of tied in with the Fantastic Four, X-Men rights, and other stuff, like Kang, the Conqueror, and other stuff. So yeah, Ultron, I think, at the time, definitely seemed like the best next middle villain, just because they could rewrite his story in a way that, like, they could still use. Because obviously, Ultron's origins in the comics are different in the movies, because Tony essentially made Ultron, while in the movies it was Hank Pym's Ant-Man that made Ultron. And obviously in the MCU, Hank Pym's an old man, and our Ant-Man is Scott.
Yeah, Paul Rudd.
Paul Rudd. But yeah, no, I mean, that's my crazy theory, that Ultron is actually the real villain.
And I'm not gonna lie, I kind of support that theory.
Yeah, it would be really cool.
Alright. Before we go, let's talk about real quick who this aerospace engineer is, because a lot of people are shouting to the heavens and saying it's possibly Reed Richards.
And I would say, nah, no way.
Yeah, no, I don't think it'd be Reed Richards.
Nah, yeah, I don't know. It feels weird to have him set up in
WandaVision.
In WandaVision, right? I mean, we know that they're making this Fantastic Four movie. They did announce that a while ago. So, I mean, it would be kind of weird to use WandaVision as their sort of gateway in there. But, yeah, I don't know. I don't buy it.
Now, some people say that it might be Captain Marvel, which is another well-known African-American superhero. He's kind of like a Superman guy, but not full Superman. That and also there's some people say maybe Shuri, but I don't think it's Shuri. I think it might be one of the Skrulls hiding as a human.
And potentially, yeah.
I feel like that makes more sense.
Yeah.
Just the way that's tying, that's way to tie and everything in.
Yeah, but no, this has been I feel like this has been our longest episode talking about WandaVision.
Well, because there was so much to talk about.
Yeah, these past 2 episodes are definitely sort of like a huge, there's a lot of stuff.
Oh Lord, imagine the next 3 episodes.
Yeah, no, that's gonna be quite the episode. We're gonna have a lot to talk about.
And we'll let you guys know when that happens. And so thank you for checking us out. We are about to wrap this up real quick. And, you know, it's fun. This show is kind of proving to be more than what we expected to be. Especially because a lot of people, when they look at the premise of WandaVision, are like, that's okay. And then now it's like, holy shit, my mind is blown.
Yeah.
And stuff. And so, you know, I'm happy to talk more about it. I mean, I really want to see someone who would binge watch all of it, get their thoughts on how it is compared to the guy like you and me who are watching it like every once a week. To see how much that difference that makes. But you know, aside from that, guys, it's been fun as always. You can catch us on social media at the Geek Centurions, on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. If you go on Instagram, you'll find us, which we are mostly doing more stuff there. We do, you know, have a link tree on our Instagram that leads you to all the podcasting sites that we are verified on, like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Castbox, Pandora, Spotify, all that good stuff. And also, we have a YouTube account where you can go see our ugly mugs and, you know, give us a like, comment, subscribe there. Tell us how we're doing. You got any ideas, all that kind of stuff. And we do have a Patreon where you can support us in any form of way. You know, whether it be big or small, we happily accept. And yeah, that's about it, guys. WandaVision is getting crazy and crazy. Holy crap. What are we going to do?
Yeah, it's, I am, really wondering what the hell is going to happen in these next 3 episodes.
And considering the last 2 episodes supposed to be the Avenger level stuff, I'm like, oh man.
Yeah.
We'll see what we do. Anyways, guys, you have a good one. This has been your boy Joey and Eli. We're at the Geek Centurions. Hope you guys are good. Stay safe. Peace.